You're standing inside a root cellar on a farm in rural Tennessee in the middle of July. It's 94 degrees above ground. Down here, it's 48 degrees. No electricity, no refrigerator, just stone walls, packed earth, and shelf after shelf of food preserved since last October, still safe to eat. The family that built this cellar in 1932 never paid a single food storage bill. And the method works on any property you own today. Your refrigerator runs 24 hours a day. It costs $150 annually just in electricity, and it needs replacing every 10 to 15 years. The system I am showing you today costs under $30, lasts indefinitely, uses zero electricity, and was used by American families for 200 years before one industry made sure it disappeared. You can stand out in the July heat, sweat rolling off your brow, and dig your hands into the topsoil, hot as a skillet. But drop a shovel 3, maybe 4 feet down, and the earth tells a different story. Down there, the temperature barely budges, no matter what's happening up above. That's not just luck, it's the physics of the ground itself. The soil acts like a blanket and a buffer, soaking up heat in summer, holding on to the cold in winter, and smoothing out the wild swings of the seasons. Scientists call this the damping depth. At about 3 to 4 feet, right around the frost line, for most of the country, the ground settles into a steady range, 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, year in and year out. It doesn't matter if it's 95 in July or 10 below in January. The numbers come from the USDA's own soil studies and thousands of climate records. They have measured it in New Hampshire, in Kentucky, out west in Nebraska. Once you get below that first couple feet, the ground shrugs off the weather. That's why a root cellar works. You're tapping into a natural refrigeration band that's always on, always free, and never needs a repairman. No wires, no bills, just the quiet, steady cool of the earth itself. That's the secret my granddad trusted, and it's the same one I trust today. Drop a potato in that steady 50-degree earth, and you are not just beating the heat, you are slowing down time itself. Every degree cooler takes the rush out of spoilage. Microbes and molds, the ones that turn carrots to mush and onions to syrup, cannot work as fast down there. The University of Missouri Extension says you will get 4 to 6 months out of most root vegetables if you keep them in that band: potatoes, beets, carrots, parsnips. That is a whole winter's worth of meals held back from rot without any wires or humming motors. The FDA calls anything above 40 degrees the danger zone for bacteria, but at 50 degrees, the numbers crawl instead of sprint. That is the difference between a bin of sprouting, shriveling spuds by Christmas and a crate of firm, sweet ones in April. Now, folks will tell you a modern fridge is safer, and for milk and meat, I will not argue. But for roots, apples, cabbage, nature's own refrigerator does the job. Here is the rub. The average fridge draws about 150 kilowatt hours a year, give or take. At today's rates, that is roughly $15 on your power bill just to run one box. Multiply that by the second fridge so many folks keep in the garage, and you are paying out year after year. The earth cellar runs for free. Once you dig it, you are done paying. No compressor to fail, no grid to worry about. The food lasts nearly as long, and the savings stack up month after month. What is the real difference? You get nearly the same shelf life, but you keep your money and your independence, two things worth more than a cold soda any day. Back in 1913, a man named Fred Wolf out of Chicago put his name on a patent for something called Domelre, the domestic electric refrigerator. That first unit carried a price tag of $900. In today's money, that is more than most folks would spend on a used pickup. Only city doctors and hotel owners could even think about it. The rest of us kept right on storing our potatoes and apples down in the earth, same as our parents and their parents before them. But then the world turned upside down. When the country went to war in 1942, the War Production Board stepped in and made it official. Civilian refrigerator production was halted by government order. They needed every pound of steel and copper for tanks, ships, and bombers. Appliance factories shut their lines, and the L series directives made sure no new fridges rolled off the line for regular folks. For a few hard years, if you wanted to keep your food cool, you had to lean on the old ways. The government told us to rely on root cellars, ice houses, and anything that did not need a plug. That is how it went. First, the price kept most families out. Then, the war made sure even the well-off had to do without. What came next would change how every American thought about food storage. In the years after the war, the big electric companies rolled out a campaign called Live Better Electrically. They did not just sell refrigerators, they sold a whole way of living. The message was clear. If you wanted to keep up, your kitchen needed to hum and glow. By 1956, Ronald Reagan himself was the face on the posters, smiling beside a gleaming refrigerator and promising a better life through electricity. More than 900 power companies and nearly 200 appliance makers joined in, pushing the gold medallion home as the new American dream. By the mid-50s, 8 out of 10 homes in this country had a refrigerator plugged in and running. That is not just a trend, that is a tidal wave. The market for these machines ballooned to $16 billion a year, and every sale meant another family tied to the monthly bill. Home builders stopped drawing root cellars into their blueprints. The old ways got buried under drywall and linoleum, not because they failed, but because there was more money in keeping folks buying year after year. Even now, you will find folks in Kentucky and across the country who remember how it used to be, how a barrel and a shovel could outlast any warranty. And the numbers still add up for anyone willing to look past the label and dig a little deeper. You've got 3 ways to put the Earth's cool to work, and none of them require a wire or a monthly bill. First, the classic root cellar. Dig yourself a space about 8 by 10 feet, 4 feet deep, with a gravel floor and vent pipes at either end for airflow. Stack your bins along the walls, set your shelves a foot off the ground, and you will have room for a winter's worth of potatoes, carrots, apples, and cabbage. If you're handy with a shovel and a level, you can build it for around $200 in lumber, hinges, and sweat. That's a one-time cost. It will last as long as the house. Second, there is the barrel method. Take a 55-gallon drum, plastic or metal, it does not matter. Dig a hole 3 feet down and set the barrel so the lid sits just above the soil. Pack sand or straw around the outside and you have a sealed, cool vault for less than $30. That is what a retired teacher in Kentucky did. She buried 2 barrels, filled them with root crops, and saw her grocery bill drop by nearly half. Last, for folks in dry country or tight on space, there is the old clay pot trick, the zier. Nest 1 clay pot inside another, fill the gap with wet sand, and keep it shaded. Evaporation pulls the temperature down 10 to 15 degrees below the air. Tomatoes, greens, eggs, they all last longer. The Food and Agriculture Organization still recommends this for small farmers around the world. 3 choices, no power, no waiting. You can start any one of them this weekend, and the payoff starts the day you put your first harvest in the ground. I watched a retired school teacher in Kentucky put this method to the test, and the numbers flat out speak for themselves. She buried 2 barrels, each one a 55-gallon drum, 3 feet down in her backyard. She packed them with potatoes, onions, and carrots. Nothing fancy, just what she grew and what she bought on sale. Before she started, her grocery bill ran about $340 a month. After a year of using those barrels, she showed me her receipts. $180 month after month. That is a savings of $160 just by letting the earth do what it has always done. This is not a fluke or some newfangled trick. The USDA laid it out plain as day back in 1932 in Farmer's Bulletin 1673. They spelled out the specs. Dig 3 to 4 feet deep, vent it right, and you will keep roots and apples through the leanest months. That bulletin went out to every county agent in America. Folks from Sweden to Kentucky, from the Irish potato clamp to the Persian yakchal, have leaned on the same principle for centuries. The ground's steady hand has carried families through hard winters and lean times, long before electric bills and salesmen. Every culture with a winter and a shovel figured it out sooner or later. That is the real pedigree behind this so-called forgotten trick, a chain of proof that runs deeper than any wire or warranty. When you see it work, you know you are standing on ground that has kept people fed for generations. Right now, a buried barrel or a stone cellar keeps food just as safe as any fridge, without a penny to the power company. The science has not changed, only the sales pitch. This is not lost knowledge. It is just waiting for folks ready to own their food again. What's stopping us?